And everyone, welcome council staff and those that have joined with us virtually, as well as those that have joined with us in person. If you're joining us in person, I would ask you to please put your communication devices on vibrate or silence them. Today is officially Wednesday, November the 27th, and day in history, the first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was held, which reminds me tomorrow is American Thanksgiving. To all of our American friends and neighbors, happy Thanksgiving. This meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa and the Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together, as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for generations to come. Council, I would remind you, if you have a pecuniary interest, to declare it at the appropriate time. Clerk, do we have any delegations this evening?
Nothing out of your worship.
All right, let's go to item 5.1 on the agenda. I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Bojan, that the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated November the 20th, 2024, regarding development engineering fees review, municipal comparison, be received as information. Mr. De Silva, you've submitted your report for us. Is there anything that you'd like to add to it?
Nothing at this time, but open to any questions.
Okay, Council, any questions to my right? Councilor Rodriguez, anything from you?
Is this on the development?
Yeah. Yeah.
Engineering. Yes.
Do you have it, or do you want me to come back and see?
No, I got it.
Okay.
So yes, I see that most other municipalities do use full cost recovery. I think in the absence of a I'm not sure of the correct wording, so my apologies, but justification report or something to show kind of how you come to the percentage points. In the absence of that, and without having to go through all that to come to the conclusion that one percentage over another is more appropriate, I still am of the consensus that cost recovery is the best way to go, and that way the developer is billed accordingly for what time is spent on each developer's projects. I understand what you're saying about, time to write in times, but I really just don't think we're that big of a municipality and don't have that much development going on anymore. That we really can't just put a timesheet on each one and bill it by the hour. And I think that's the least appealable solution as well. Because it's fair, the most fairest, I think anyway. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Bojan.
Yeah, I just have a clarification question as well. So in the financial impact section, it talks about projecting 40,000 in revenue, but it's a cost recovery program. So is that 40,000 because it gets applied to staff time, or is that surplus in the end for projection?
De Silva?
Yeah, through your worship. So the 40,000 is just based on a typical $1 million subdivision, which is probably on the low end. So when I had proposed the fees, it was 4% up to $1 million, and anything exceeding 1 million would be below that 2%. So it's just essentially just revenue that comes back into the department that covers the cost of engineering wages.
And so when it comes to the alternative, which is what most people are doing, which is the cost recovery and they're billing hourly, do we know if are they doing that quarterly, annually, or at the end of a project? Do we know, or what the standard is?
Through your worship, there was not a one size fits all approach here. Some of them were billed on a semi-annual basis, some at the end of the project. It varied between municipality on what they do.
Yeah, because I mean, I understand the administrative part. It just seems that the scale percentage is larger urban centers, massive developments. And I'm just worried it hurts competitiveness and creates an uneven playing field in terms of like the win some, lose some. I understand that for us, we want to make sure we're breaking even, but that kind of worries me that if we're winning some and losing some, does that mean developers are winning some and losing some? So I'm just nervous about that part when we can just try tracking it and billing annually or whatnot to make sure we're getting our cost recovery. But I just do worry about that. I mean, a lot of our neighbors of similar sizes aren't probably charging less for those bigger developments. It's just, that's where I'm worried.
To my left, Deputy Mayor.
Well, it's just a cost recovery for each individual contract, like there's a lot of detail that goes into that by tracing everything and a lot of employee time. But then if you're going to, that's going to be charged then too, isn't it? The time you would spend at each one, if it's all cost recovery, why not? Instead of just a flat rate or, 2% or 3%, whatever, you put your time into for those projects. Is that it? Because I didn't see anything about your time, like an employee's time. Really.
Yeah, through your worship. So essentially what we would have to do is just track everyone's time that they're spending, specifically on the engineering side, because planning already has their own fee for this review. The reason why I'm suggesting a percentage basis is because not all these projects are the same. Some of them have varying degrees of complexity in terms of infrastructure. Some of them take multiple years just to review. So a $1 million project is not, the same depending on the location that you're at. So if we took 5 years to get to construction phase, we could be spending a considerable amount of time in review fees, meaning that developer would pay probably a lot more than another developer if it was just charged based on a percentage fee across construction costs. So that's why I recommended that. Certainly open to doing it on a cost recovery basis, but it does add a little bit more complication as well as some administrative time for invoicing and allocation.
Thank you. Councillor Van Claveren, anything from you?
I feel my answer, but I do understand the concept of a percentage, and the incentive is that the more you invest in our municipality, the potential to not pay as much in fees is attractive. It's in some sense, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen of another. I can appreciate that. Obviously nobody wants to pay these fees. So, I'm certainly comfortable with the percentage approach. I don't think it's anything necessarily to be fearful of or concerned about. It's just another way to recoup those fees. And again, show some and give some incentive to a larger project. That would be my thoughts on that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Wolvett.
Yeah, my thoughts on this are full cost recovery. I have no issue with that, but I think we get up to that 2 and 4% percentage fees. I mean, $1 million today is price of one lot. So when you look at some of these subdivisions that some of our developers are putting together, I mean, these are a lot more than $1 million. So those costs are going to be at 4% enormous, even if reduced to 2%. They're huge costs. So I mean, I'm okay with the full cost recovery, maybe hourly and keeping track of it, but like I think we got to start to tighten our belts on a lot of this stuff, because any of these costs the developer is going to have to put on, he's going to pass that right on. That's going to be passed right on to the people buying. No doubt about it. He's got to recover his costs also, and or he or she has to recover their costs. So cost recover and keeping track of it, fine. But we also already have employees that are here to do those kind of jobs, already being paid. So You know, it's not like you're sending them out on a mission just for one project. I mean, it's all mixed in with what they do every day. So there's got to be some credit for that kind of thing. So that's cost recovery is what I'll go with hourly.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Anything further, Council? Yes, Councilor Rodriguez.
Sorry, thank you. One more question about whatever gets implemented as of January 1, 2025. How does that work when any development is already in progress? Is it applied to new development going forward? Because there's been fees already paid in some projects, right?
So,
Through your worship, I would suggest that it would apply to any development which they have not yet signed their agreement. So any agreements that have already been signed, we're bound by those conditions. Any agreements that haven't been signed to date, we could, as long as it's in the fees bylaw, we could charge those fees out. In terms of if we were to go with a full cost recovery model, it'd be difficult for us to go back in time and figure out how much time we spent on those. We'd have to go with, you know, that day forward.
Which would apply either way.
Mhm.
Councilor Bowden, then Clerk.
Yeah, sorry, I do have one other question, because I know the original was that 4% case with a sliding scale to 2%, and that was the hopes to break even. And that talks about based on surrounding ones that we consider to lower to 2%. But if we considered lowering it just to 2%, does that mean we're not gonna be breaking even if we were breaking even originally at 4 and 2?
Mr. De Silva.
Yeah, through your worship. That's a good question. Originally I thought 4 to 2%, just because at $1 million, $40,000 is roughly the amount of time, because a lot of the time is taken up in review. And then you have the inspection component. So at 2%, I still think on the larger projects, we will probably break even, and 2% is probably a decent compromise for something like this. And the intent was always to review this on an annual or biannual basis to see if we were actually covering our costs or not. So even at that 4 to 2%, if we were bringing in more revenue than what we were spending, I would have always recommended that we would have reduced that, because the intent is not necessarily to make money off this. It's just to cover our wages.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Bowden?
That's my only question. Thank you.
Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify that, excuse me, that motion is just to receive Mr. De Silva's report. Do we feel like council is given clear direction of what's to come back in the fees bylaw, or do we want a motion on the table for council to decide the direction?
I think a motion on the table would be helpful, although I heard that predominantly there's support for a full cost recovery model. There was some other suggestions made, so I think on a table would be best to move this forward.
Also okay with that?
Just receiving our report if you want.
Okay. So council, just so everybody's clear, what we're going to be voting on is to receive Mr. De Silva's report. Just to receive it. Okay. Moved by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Bojan, that the report by Paul De Silva dated November 20th regarding development engineering review fees, municipal comparison be received as information. We're all clear on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and a seconder for this.
Yeah, Adam, do you want to read that? See if you're okay with that?
We'll serve the purpose, yes.
I'm over in a second.
Mover and a seconder.
Would you mind reading it first, sir?
Sure. That staff be directed to include cost recovery development engineering fees for consideration of 2025 fees and user charges bylaw. Everybody okay with that? Chris, Councilor Rodriguez,
Oh, sorry. I was just, you wanted a mover and seconder. Sorry.
are you okay on that?
Yeah. Where do I sign?
Move her up here, move.
Counselor Van Claveren, were you okay to second that?
Yes.
This is just for cost recovery.
Correct. Okay, Council, a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Van Claveren, that staff be directed to include cost recovery development engineering fees for consideration in the 2025 fees and user charges bylaw. We all clear? All those in favor? That's carried.
Against. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Okay, Council, we're going to, because we have a guest with us this evening who has another commitment, I'm going to move to item 8.1 on our agenda. That is a staff report. I have a motion by Councilor Wolvette, seconded by Councilor Van Claveren, that the report by Nicole Campbell, Executive Assistant Corporate Services, dated November 18th, 2024, regarding the 2024 to 2029 Town of Plympton-Wyoming multi-year accessibility plan update be received, approved by council, and that bylaw 141 of 2024 be taken as having been read 3 times and finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Also, you've had an opportunity to review that. We have Mr. Dale Mosley here, who was the author of that report. If there are any questions or concerns that you'd like to ask at this time. Councilor Rodriguez first.
Thank you. So it was noted in several columns of the report, no consultation from individuals with accessibility needs were done. Was there any opportunity provided to the public to see if there were any individuals in our community who may have wanted to participate in the process?
Mostly, you may take the stand if you'd like to.
Your worship, that was a recommendation actually in the report to the County of Lambton has accessibility advisory committee that they would be able to you can use them, or there would be a motion to actually have your own accessibility advisory committee. That's something that would be ideal in the future. For this report, there was nobody who was consulted at that time. I used design standards for that report. However, it would be up to the municipality to do that in the future. And that is a recommendation that was in the report, that to consult with people with disabilities. It's actually part of the AODA for a lot of those recommendations that are in there. So before you build and before you design those design features, you would have a lot of those would be consultation with people with disabilities. So it is something that is a part of law and something that you would have to do, and it's written within the report.
Thank you. If I may. So my question would be to our CAO, I believe, or the Parks and Rec. Like if you were looking at replacing playground equipment, for example, do you look for, you said there was a Lambton County Accessibility Advisory Committee? Are we allowed to tap into that region when looking at those types of projects or any type of project?
I would suggest, given the recommendations of the report, that moving forward on projects where we intend to incorporate accessible features, that we would utilize the County of Lambton's committee where possible.
Okay, so we're able to do that. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anything else, Councilor?
Not for me, thank you, sir.
Okay, you've heard the motion, call for the vote. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Mosley, for the work that you did and putting that together for us. You're free to go if you'd like. All right, council, we're gonna go back to item 6.1 on the agenda, which is motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions of council remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That would be our regular council meeting minutes of the 13th of November, as well as our closed regular council meeting minutes of the 13th of November 2024. We all had a chance to read those. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Council will go to item 6.2. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That would be our Fire Executive Committee meeting minutes of October the 21st, 2024, and the quarter revision relating to the Saul drain of November 13th, 2024. We have Chairman Wolvett here, as well as our drainage liaison, Councillor Van Claveren, if there's any questions. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Go to item 6.3. Deputy Councilors Reports.
Yes, Mr. Woolbert, did you do anything in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I did a whole lot there, Deputy Mayor, but I don't have a whole lot to report. I think you've already had the minutes in here for the fire board. So we'll just leave it at that for tonight.
Oh, okay, good. That was quick. Mr. Van Claveren.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think what I can report has also been revealed in the past minutes of, in regards to drainage,
Okay.
our municipality.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher.
None of my committees have met since the last one, so nothing to update for now.
Okay. I might be a little bit ahead. We've got council remuneration next, and I noticed you went to a conference. Did you want to tell us anything about your conference, or was it just a fun day?
Did last time, remember? Because you guys made fun of me for nerding out.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. All right. Okay.
I can do it again if you want.
No, never mind, never mind. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I have not had any meetings since then, but I was online last time and didn't get to really talk much, which was probably a blessing for you all.
It was, we're thankful.
But the trails meeting, we did, and then I worked afterwards with our administrator on a letter to prepare for all the municipalities regarding uniform signage for trails. So that letter, I'm not sure if it's already been received. But it's in the works incoming. And there were, this was all brought through actually our own insurance, Intact Insurance, who worked with Conservation Ontario, or sorry, Ontario Trails, to put together some uniform signage for the. I believe I've asked them to direct it to Parks and Rec. So that's where we'll find it and can speak to it.
You're preparing. Is that it?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy. Not too much. I had the opportunity to represent our municipality at the Warden's Banquet recently, fire banquet, or sorry, the fire meeting. I was able to attend that. I do have one question though for Councilor Rodriguez. The Conservation Authority's annual general meeting that's coming up in the new year. Do you have a date on that yet? Are you prepared to share that? Or should we come back to that later?
Well, my computer is like locked up and where all my stuff is.
Okay, so that'll be determined later, right? We'll look for the memo.
I feel like it's December 12th. So I will confirm that. I'll send out an email. They're having it earlier. It was, I think, originally December 16th, but got changed to December 12th. And we also have an appeals meeting coming up on December 17th too.
We'll wait to hear from you.
Yeah.
All right,
Did Elizabeth, you had your hand up, did you?
Ms. Cummings?
Yes, through your worship, I was just going to mention the appeal, but that's not on the same date as the.
It's a different date.
Deputy, what about you?
What have I been doing? Oh, I went to a museum meeting where we had Brad Gray speak on the John Labatt kidnapping. And he told us all about the bad guys and the good guys, and it was interesting. And fun to listen to him. He was, you know, a little descriptive, so there you go. And we had a big turnout too, so lots of people were interested in that. That's basically, well, I went to the Warden's banquet. It was real good meal. And
Unfortunately, no turkey though.
yeah, oh no, yes, there was turkey. But there was beef, which was excellent. So, thank you. Does any staff members have anything wild to report or interesting to report? We haven't done anything, so thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you, council. Let's go to item 7.1 on your agenda. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wolbet. The council remuneration claims for October 2024 be approved for the payment. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. All right, let's go to our staff reports. We've already done 8.1, so let's go to 8.2. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that the report by Elizabeth Cummings, Drainage and Engineering Coordinator, dated November 18th, 2024, regarding the petition for drainage works by the owner of part lot 15, concession 1 at 402 Broadway Street be received, and the council accepts the petition as filed and appoints M. Garrett's Consulting Incorporated to make an examination of the area and prepare a report on the matter. Now, so you've had a chance to read that. Ms. Cummings is here if you have any questions. Hearing none, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, item 8.3. Moved by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, that the report by Jessica Wilson, Executive Assistant, Public Works, dated November 14th, 2024, regarding the tender results for the removal of trees the 2024-2025 season be received, and that the bid from Wyoming Tree Service for $13,814.25, including HST, be accepted. Any questions? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor, I didn't see the.
This contract here strictly is the 32 trees, correct? Mark 32 trees.
That would be Mr. De Silva.
Yeah.
Comment on that?
Doesn't include anything that's up and above that.
So through you, your worship, yes, this is for the specific 32 trees, which were evaluated and deemed requiring to be removed, but not, they're not an emergency. They don't need to be removed tomorrow. So that's why we decided to lump them together under one contract to get some good pricing, which obviously worked based on the results.
Right. When I look at the results, it's from low to high bid is half. It's a pretty good bid.
It's a good bid, and my assumption is this particular contractor really wanted to work in their local municipality.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see your hand there.
Fine.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Good. Okay, item 8.4. A motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wolbet, that the report prepared by Jessica Wilson, Executive Assistant, Public Works, dated November 15th, 2024, regarding the tender results for the McIntyre drain maintenance be received, and that the tender from GM Construction for $30,244.45, including HST bid. And that bylaw 139 of 2024 be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Any questions on this? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, items 8.5. By Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren. There's a report by Norma Roddick Priest, Treasurer, dated November the 14th, 2024, regarding the third quarter budget, 2024 budget update received and filed. Our treasurer is here along with the deputy treasurer. If there are any questions, beginning on my left, any questions? Seeing none, I'll go to my right. Any questions? Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you. On page 1, I believe it is. The Reese's Corners improvements, just over 25,000, which we didn't budget for. So I'm just wondering, are there any other expenses still pending? And where will the money come from?
Sure.
The majority of the improvements that were done were prior to the release of the tenders for the leasing opportunities. I'm not expecting any additional work this year at this time.
So there's no outstanding still to be.
Not in regards to improvements. I understand we did have the roofing contractor out there to make a few repairs on a couple of cracks around the roofing vents, but other than that, I'm not aware of any other repairs or maintenance that we do this year. As far as where that would be covered through, it would either be covered through a surplus if there was surplus at the end of the year. If there is not, council, I believe, would allocate the infrastructure funds as that's where the purchase was allocated from as well.
And if I may, one more question. The legal fees, they were extremely high last year, not quite as high this year, but still over budget. Are the legal fees like that category? Is it like an all-encompassing legal for like anything the town needs legal for? Or is it something specific?
It's all encompassing with the exception of planning. The planning budget has its own legal section.
Okay.
So their planning or legal fees in relation to planning are budgeted separately, but that specific legal fee covers everything else that the municipality seeks legal advice on or needs legal representation on other than planning.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried. Council will go to 8.6. A motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that the report by Aaron Kwarchuk, clerk, dated November the 20th, 2024, regarding the OPP false alarm bylaw be received, and that bylaw 140 of 2024 be approved, taking as having been read 3 times and finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Any questions on this? Councillor Bojan?
Just clarification question. I'm not sure if staff will know for sure. My first question is, I know there's a definition in the proposed bylaw what a false alarm is. But do we have any idea about if these false alarms, so for the 47 that we've had this year so far, are they pocket dials? Are they kids calling 911? Are they 911 calls that OPP just deemed it false? Or do we have any idea on what actual false alarm calls these are?
Good. Clerk?
I'm not sure if it was talked about at your police services board meeting. But I believe it's a combination thereof. My kid forgot there was an alarm set up, but we don't have a breakdown of what those each individual ones are. But it's like a combination of everything, and that's what's adding so many calls together. Yeah.
And is there a process that exists for the OPP to just handle this themselves.
As far as a bylaw goes, Counselor?
As far as billing for service that they deem inappropriate.
I am not aware of that. It was discussed at the last police board meeting, but I don't believe there's a thing. They wanted to go back to the municipalities, obviously for the cost factor. If they do it for money, we'll fail them as well to do it. But I don't believe that is in place.
I'm gonna look up an email about that as well.
Okay.
And then my last question would be if this bylaw was passed, has there been any sense that the OBP is willing to support financially a communications effort to share with the public that this change is coming, so that the public is aware that OBP will be charging for false alarms?
I think, if I may answer that, Counselor, yes, the OPP and the municipalities will be sharing that jointly. Residents will know.
That's all the questions I had for now, and if Ms. Korchak's able to find something else, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Counselor Rodriguez.
First, I would like to say, that I, doing this industry, I feel that Plympton-Wyoming has done a great job in having, very minimal false alarms. This would not even enter the radar in many police services to be looked at. I think for me, on this report are a lot of things. Some Councillor Bojan has brought up. It's hard to know how many alarm systems are even in the municipality to compare these false alarms to. That's number one. And to Councillor Bojan's point, where the police service, this is a service provided by the police, which is provincial. We do not have any control over this service. So I'm not sure why we're inserting ourselves into a service we do not provide. There are plenty of other police services that do in bigger urban centers where they have very high crime rates and limited resources that need to impose such bylaws because they have bigger problems in general. That they build those directly, those police services, because we're just not a part of this service, so I'm not understanding why we would be billing for this. It's something we have no control over. We are currently paying $1.147 million in OPP fees over the last several years. That has increased by about 1% this year. This year, we're looking at, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I was limited with my ability. The 18%, it's an 18% increase our taxpayers are facing next year. That translates to over $200,000 more that our taxpayers are going to be having to pay out. And the other thing that's lacking in this is that how much crime is actually even in our community to know if the resources are being stretched. When you're only looking at 5 calls in 1 month or 8 calls in another month, on top of it, we have an insurance industry who actually promotes and sometimes mandates that these systems be used. Because they're trying to curtail costs in the insurance industry. So and then thirdly, one doesn't even really know, probably the majority of the time, whether they even have a false alarm until somebody shows up and determines it's a false alarm. So it's kind of a setup for failure and a deterrent for safety. I think safety above all else should be considered, and for the amount of money this municipality is paying to have those resources available, I think that should supersede this little bit of money that may go back into the coffer. So there's just a lot of things missing here, but above all else, this is a police service. And the police service should be the one administering.
Clerk?
Your worship, I agree, the report is limited. That is because I don't attend police service boards. We have an email that requested that each municipality consider the bylaw, which is attached for your consideration. I dug up the statistics on the amount of calls or responses to that. They do send us it's bi-monthly, like a March, April, May, June newsletter that specifically speaks to statistics of all their calls across the whole county. Tons of charts and pie graphs and stuff. So we do have their amount of work in our municipality. Council gets those when they come. In regards to the false alarm calls, I'm assuming, and I'm not at those meetings, there's 47 here, and then when you look at them countywide, it's consuming their time. I'm not sure if the OPP have a way to bill it back themselves. You indicated that they do. I more thought that it was as we have the ability to charge it back, and then if it's not paid, put on taxes, that would be why it was coming through us. So I don't know what their cost recovery, how they do that and what they're allowed. It was sent to us to ask council to consider, but I don't the details of what was at the meeting.
It was pretty rushed.
Yeah.
Put out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And if I could add to that, looking at the costs in what other jurisdictions, I mean, quite frankly, not even these types of fees, these types of fees are way exorbitant, besides the first one, compared to other jurisdictions. They're so far beyond the realm of whatever other jurisdictions charge, first of all. Second of all, many of those larger urban centers have moved away from this type of structure. So for example, London, Ontario, where they have, obviously, we all know from watching the news what goes on in London. They actually just put in a protocol that it has to be 2 zones are tripped for visual verification of an alarm. So that way there is none of this administration, none of this going on, and they had tremendous success with it, and everybody could move on. So it deterred a lot of those false alarms, kid walking in the door, forget there's an alarm system type scenarios. And it took away all the burden of administration as well. So I think there's many other ways this could be addressed that would be more proactive and productive, but also allow the community to know that they're going to be looked after when it's needed, and not be afraid to, because those fees are astronomical. If I go to the bylaw as well, if I may, in the bylaw, it's stated where you're supposed to call the OPP if you're testing your system. That would not work for them. It wouldn't be a realistic scenario for people to do, especially if you have a monitored system. You would be calling your monitoring station. You would never think to call the OPP and tie up their resources to say, hey, don't come to my house. Do you know what I mean? So that one was just a little bit strange for me.
Just for clarification, the police services board sent this, they drafted the bylaw.
No, I'm sorry, I'm
So
not
they-
saying you.
No, I'm just saying maybe they do have a way, and I don't know, why would they put it in there? if they
I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea, because that just makes no sense.
Yeah.
To knowing the alarm industry, it makes no sense
Yeah,
that people would even do that. It just doesn't fall in the normal protocol of how it works in the industry.
yes.
So that one was concerning too as well. Okay.
Do you want to keep going, and then I may have a suggestion?
Sure. Do you want me to go with the other officers?
Yeah, that's what I mean here.
Okay. Councilor Wilbet, do you think?
Well, this whole thing concerns me too, and I can't say it any better than Kristen just said it. I don't agree with it. We pay big money to have policing here in this community. We're a small community. This is not my first go around with the false alarms. When I chaired the police services board up in Wyerton for 6 years, this was a hot topic at that time. Even with the province, I was to conventions that was talked about. Number one, I don't think we should be doing the OPP's work. This is their baby. They can figure it out themselves, how they're gonna do it. And this whole false alarm thing, is it really a false alarm? I mean, it's like reaching up to your smoke detector and taking the battery out, thinking, oh, that thing's false, and then next thing you know, your house burns down because you forgot to put the battery in it. If there's an alarm, you need to go to it. Simple as that. And if it's false, well, I mean, that's probably a good thing. Something's not happening. You know, if you've got a malfunctioning piece of equipment, is there anything wrong with the OPP? They go there 3 or 4 times or whatever, give the guy a piece of paper. They can write you a ticket at the side of the road for your car. Surely they can write them a little piece of paper saying, you better get a hold of whoever repairing your system and get it done, because, you know, you could be affecting an emergency. It's overkill. I don't think we as a municipality should be doing their work, collecting their money, and then sending them a check when it's like, it just don't make sense. They have a way, and we're paying them big money to police this community, and I think we should vote this thing down. Let them figure out how they're going to address false alarms with the OPP, not the municipality. I understand what they're trying to do, get all the municipalities on board, get them to do all the work for them. No, no, we got enough of our own work, my goodness, with our staff, let alone load them down with somebody else's. And I'm not just saying the OPP, if this was any business trying to get us to do their buck work for them, I'd be saying the same thing. So I think the false alarm thing, they got to be real careful with it, that somebody don't get hurt because they don't want to respond to a false alarm. That's all. I won't be supporting this for sure.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Anything clever, anything for you?
Super quick. I agree with all the fellow councilors, and I think if we got involved, it would open up the door to some liability. It's certainly a level of grief at our front office when folks get a bill in the mail from us. On behalf of the OPP, that we're gonna get some feedback. We don't need that. So I won't be supporting this either.
Deputy Mayor?
I don't have a problem with it if we keep the fees, but apparently we don't, so yeah, of course not. It's ridiculous for doing their work.
All right. Okay, call for the vote. All, yes, Clerk, I'm sorry.
Okay, your worship, you can call for the vote. The only suggestion I was gonna make, if council felt like they wanted more information, we can invite representatives from the board to speak, being that we're not have that information at our fingertips here. They did request that municipalities obviously approve it before the end of December, going for January. We do have another meeting, we could get them in, or so it could be deferred or it could be defeated.
Yes, Counselor.
I mean, at the end of the day, besides all that other stuff, it is their service and they should be administering it. And so to bring them in would probably not change my mind anyway on that point.
But you're only one. Others might
No,
be-
no, for me, I said for me.
Counselor Bowden?
Yeah, I think the other weird part about having it set up like this, I think it's one thing, you know, if you're the city of Toronto and you have the Toronto Police Service. Because then if they pass a bylaw like this or however they do it, it's across the entire, I mean. We could pass one that it's $100. St. Clair can pass one that it's $600. Petrolia can be $200. I just feel like this could get super weird and super squirrely. If it's up to the individual municipalities to set their own and then build their own, I would love to know that. Must be another option here for an administrative perspective for OPP. And to make it more, if they truly see a need to make a blanket system that's Lambton County. It would just get super weird if it's up to municipalities to make their own. I don't know.
Go on.
I do think all municipalities in that board's area got the same bylaw.
But
But
technically.
they could change it
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
No, they
yeah.
just started off like that, but you're right. Someone could say, oh, this is great, but let's slash those in half or add more on, and then we're all different. The template was the same for
Yeah,
everyone.
right, yeah.
So council, I'm not hearing a lot of support for this. So I guess the thing is, do you want to defeat it or do you want it deferred? So I guess I'll go first for the defeat. All those for defeating? Defeated. See the headlines next week. Counselor Wolvet, you'll be the start.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, good discussion, council. That's what we're here for. Well done. Okay, let's go to item 8.7. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wolvet. Report by Aaron Kawarchuk, clerk, dated November 20th, 2024, regarding annual arena use fee agreement with the town of Petrolia for Greenwood Recreation Center be received, approved, and that bylaw 142 of 2024 to facilitate the agreement be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Council, you're aware this discussion came up last year around budget time, and we asked staff to come up with an agreement for that. So, any questions on that? Councillor, did you have your hand up first?
I think I'll let Mr. Alex go first. Mr. Alex.
Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, like, I'm happy to chat with this. I've got some notes, and I'm more than happy to discuss it. I just know that our chair of the Parks and Rec committee isn't here tonight, so I'm not sure. I would be more comfortable. I mean, I don't think this is super urgent. I mean, usually we don't approve this until January anyways, every year. So I personally think it should be deferred so that our chair of the Parks and Rec committee can provide his input.
I know the vice chair is here to get it done.
No, because, no.
That's fine. Councilor Wolvet,
Thank you.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if there's an impending one from Plympton Shores. I was just surprised not to see both of them at the same time.
Plympton Shores, Mr. Sabansky, good comment on that one.
I did make a note in that we're working towards that. I wanted to get through the Petrolia one because the Petrolia one was very much the more challenging one when we reviewed it, because the $10,000 goes direct to their operations. It does not get allocated back to the user groups that host Plympton-Wyoming residents. So we wanted to get through the Petroleum one and then use that as a template, with the exception of how the grant is handled with Plympton Shores, to ensure we're being consistent. So that's why we presented one today. So we'll take notes from council if they had any, and then when it gets approved, we'll use that as a template, the exception of how the money is allocated with Plympton Shores.
If I may, but off of this, but I do know, we all know Petrolia is looking at the possibility of a second ice rink because of need and growth. Plympton Shores is overflowing. I don't know what their plans are, but if those big ticket items came back on the table, they would go through some sort of different.
Separately.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is just existing as it is.
And it won't affect this.
No,
Okay.
nothing at all. To my left, Councilor Wolvet.
I would go for deferral based on what Councillor Alex talked about.
I agree, sir.
I don't know why we just can't just pay what we've been doing all along, and why we have to go through all this convoluted agreement and all that stuff. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I have some indication that you would prefer it deferred to go back to the Parks Board, or for further discussion?
I just personally think, I think our chair of the Parks and Rec Board kind of initiated this at the last budget. I just think it'd be nice if he was at the next meeting and we could defer to that so he can provide his input.
Clerk?
Tonight, Your Worship. We have another meeting in December. We do have another meeting in early January before the budget meeting, so there is time to.
Debbie?
I agree that Councillor Vaizey should be here to discuss it, but not as the Parks Board Chair. He brought that up as a councillor. It wasn't as part of Parks Board discussions at all. Want to clarify that.
That's right. You just referenced parks. I'm fine to talk about it tonight. I just.
Okay, how many would like to,
I think the predominant feeling was
Deferral.
deferral, sir, if you want to call it. vote on
I think
deferral.
that's probably the route we go. Okay, so this motion is by Councillor Van Claver and seconded by Councillor Wolvette. It's to receive and approve the bylaw, facilitate the agreement with Town of Petrolia. And this was for a deferred vote. All those in favor? That carries. Okay, let's go to item 8.8. We have strategic asset management policy update. Moved by Councillor Wolvette, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren. The report by Christine Jewson, Deputy Treasurer, dated November the 21st, 2024, regarding the strategic asset management policy update report be received and strategic asset management policy be approved. Jewson is with us this evening. Any questions for her? Hearing none, Councillor Wolvette.
Who rated all this? Who did the ratings on this? Like, looking through this, a lot of reading here, 60 pages of stuff, but you know, I look at some of the ratings here and equipment stuff, looks like looks like everything's junk. Or, you know, I look at the fire board, for instance.
So through the chair, I think first we're working on the strategic asset management policy. So I think that's one report before what you're asking
I'm
about.
gonna say it's.
Go to the
We'll get there. It's for the strategic asset management policy, it's a requirement that we have one in place and it's updated every 5 years. The last policy was put in place in 2019, so it's due to be updated. So they're two different documents.
Ms. Houston. All those in favor? 8.9, moved by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez, with the report by Christine Jewson, Deputy Treasurer, dated November 19th, 2024, regarding the 2024 Asset Management Plan report be received and Asset 2024 Management Plan be approved. Any questions? Councillor Wolvette.
Yeah, who would have rated these? And by the way, great report. I should have started out that way. Thank you for the report. But as I looked through it, 59 pages, you know, I zeroed in on some of the things here. Like an example, the water tower, average condition, 13%. Average condition rating, very poor. I hope we don't try to sell it because might be able to, wouldn't get much money for it. And same thing when I go down to the fire. And I look at the ratings on some of the equipment, you know, my goodness, we got one of the best equipped, two best equipped fire stations in probably the province, according to some of the fire chiefs. So I just wondered who would have rated them that low. I do believe it probably was based on how old they are, a lot of that criteria, but I don't think we have any fire equipment that's not in excellent condition.
So through the chair, you're correct. Most of the condition ratings are based on the age of the assets. We do have some data gaps where we could get better condition data by assessing the assets, and that would likely bring those averages and the conditions up. I know the Director of Public Works discussed me getting the water tower assessed, the condition assessed next time they were working on it. And for fire equipment specifically, a lot of that data is from when we first were collecting all the asset information for the fire departments. I believe a lot of the information is out of date.
So that is something that finance and the fire department and all the departments will need to work on, is making sure we get better data so that we can have more accurate figures.
So some of this may be out of date. So, okay, that's fair enough. Thanks.
Mr. De Silva?
Yeah, if I may add, through you, your worship, the water tower, it drew my attention as well because it was rated so poorly. That water tower is inspected on a very regular basis. It is in good condition, but like Christine said, it's based on age. And we realized that maybe our life cycle wasn't exactly correct either. So the next time we inspect it, we're gonna actually have them do a condition rating on it so we can actually update it to the actual condition, not just based on age.
Because if I recall, I think I do, if we just refurbished that tower, spend a fair bunch of money on the inside of it. So yeah, that's why that kind of stood out to little. How do they get in such bad shape? Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Anything else, Counselor? Okay,
And it should be noted that asset management plan is a living document. It's not something that you are going to have 100% corrected in the first time. It is a massive document to rate the condition of every piece of asset we have. It would be a massive task. Large municipalities struggle to even get close to 100% accurate asset management plans. So I know staff are doing their best to get ratings of what we can. We've, clarified our ratings through the roads needs study, wastewater master plans, drinking water master plans, fleet master plans, and we're trying to slowly incorporate that into the master plan. But it is a massive task to do, especially for a small town. Also, it should be noted that a lot of towns our size pay that tens of thousands of dollars to have a consultant carry this out. We did it in-house this year. So it's a living document and we saved a fair bit of money by doing it in-house. And we hope that as we go along, it will become more and more accurate and better to be used.
How do you?
Yeah.
all right. Anything further? Counselor Rodriguez?
Thank you, and I appreciate what you said, so I'm not trying to ignore what you said. On page 40 of 59, on the asset type, replacement cost method, replacement cost and annual requirement. And it says fire. And then it says 2.64 million, and then annual requirement to put away towards capital cost replacement was 63,000. Am I reading that correctly?
Sorry, which page were you on?
40 and 59 of just your report.
Oh, of just
not of the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
So just in the fire.
Is the page number? Yeah.
It's 40 of, 59 of the report. We can get it up here.
Okay. So I guess I can explain some of the key terms. So the replacement cost, that's the majority of the replacement costs are, if we don't have unit costs, it's based on the historical cost of the assets and it's inflated up to 2023 values. And so we take the replacement cost divided by the useful life of the asset, and that's determines the annual requirement or how much money we should set aside every year to save up to replace that.
So I did understand that.
Okay, and sorry.
Correctly. No, that's good. You confirmed what I was thinking. So this is for the entire fire category. It would be my next question, because we have a ladder truck. The replacement cost of that ladder truck would be 2.1 million, we were told, alone if it was to be bought brand new. And that's just one out of a fleet of vehicles, but we have the entire fire fleet valued at 2,644,000 for replacement.
So I believe I see what the issue is. So at the top of there's kind of categories two different ways.
Okay.
There's asset types. So I think you're looking under facilities. So
Yes.
that would be more just the buildings.
Okay.
And then the
Thank
fire
you.
trucks are under fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Later down in the report, the financial strategy, because that's not how we budget. We don't budget for just fleet across all departments. We budget based on departments. So the financial strategy part of the report is based on departments. So down below, later in the report, it would say fire, and that would be for facilities, equipment, and
Everything.
yes.
So that was on what page?
Down
Or down.
Page
Yeah.
46.
Thank you.
Yeah, suggesting there the annual requirement for the fire department with the fleet is $650,227.
The annual, oh, okay, there, that makes more sense, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Since it's up on the, do you mind if I carry on?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So those are the annual requirements for the tax funded assets. So the annual requirement for tax funded ones are $7 million. The annual funding available, how that's been calculated is, so taxes, that's how much we're currently budgeting each year to either replace capital items or putting away into reserves. Unspecified is how much we're budgeting for the infrastructure reserve, just the general reserve. So it looks like we have a big surplus for this that department, but really it's just could be applied to any one department. So annually, our current deficit is $2.8 million. We do have reserves set aside, so that's a good sign. Ella, do you want to go down a couple pages? Impromptu. Great. Oh, that was good. So these are the rate funded assets. The annual requirements for water and wastewater are 3 million. And the annual deficit is 1.3 million. Those are budgeted separately because water fees goes to water and sewer goes to sewer. So they're separate. Want to go to page 50 or down 2 more pages? So these are the reserves that we have in place right now. So this is good news. We have been putting aside money. So for the total tax funded reserves, we have 20 million. That's a mix of discretionary reserves. So our infrastructure reserve that we set aside, and specific departments, Parks and Rec and Fire, they all have their own reserve accounts. There's also included items like development charges for those specific departments and for gas tax and parkland fees. Those obligatory reserves, they can't just be used for whatever project we want to use them for. They have to be used for specific projects and follow certain guidelines, so they're not as readily available. Water and sewer are rate funded, and so those discretionary reserves are down below, and those are close to 15 million. Let me go down a few more pages, sorry. The next one, yeah. So this is the water rate funded financial strategy. We followed the water financial plan recommendation to increase the annual rates by 3.6%. So in green, you can see that is the funds available to go towards capital. So the rates less the operating costs. A little hard to read. And so the total annual requirement for water is about 1.2 million. And so this is the gap. That's the amount of money that we're not setting aside for water that we should be each year. When we increase these rates, we shorten that gap a lot more. This is why it's great that we have these reserves in place already, because we're going to need those funds to fill in this red gap. Next page. Similar story for sewer. We'll get there a little faster. Not as much of a gap here. However, we are going to use the majority of our reserves for sewer in the next few years, since we're going to almost drain our reserves. But that's okay. It's going to hurt to see that money go out of our bank account. But as long as you're using the money what it's supposed to be used for, that's okay. So it's great that we have those reserves built up. And that's likely why this is a bit of a smaller gap, because we have been funding that a little more appropriately. You want to go up 2 pages? Sorry, I should have just done a presentation. Okay, and then this is the strategy for tax funded assets. So one important thing to mention is, so the annual requirement is for assets that the town owned as of December 31st, 2023. So it doesn't include any new assets that were purchased this year or that we will assume in future years. So this strategy, so first we use the funding, so gas tax, OSIF money. And then this is how much we're currently spending on our assets each year. So that's either actually replacing roads or fixing them or putting to infrastructure reserves. And then this is how much we should be increasing it every year. This strategy includes increasing the annual infrastructure reserve by $200,000 every year. So that means from the budgeted amount. So in 2024, we budgeted 1.4 million. In 2025, we'll budget minimum 1.6, and then we'll go up by 400,000, then 600,000 to really build up this and decrease that. One important part of the strategy that I don't think I really talked about in the plan was this doesn't include any one-time grants. We are going to try to get one-time grants all the time, right? So if we are going to put in a new pool and we can get it 50% covered by a one-time grant, then we'll try to use that, and then that will help decrease this because we'll get those extra sources of funding, and that, you know, that could eat up a big chunk of this room here. And then maybe page 7. So this is summary of the strategy, what we'll use. So for tax funded assets, we'll increase the reserves to the general infrastructure reserve by a minimum of 200,000 each year. For existing assets, also, we need each department to start increasing the reserves that they are budgeting within their own specific department each year. So for example, the fleet assets, we've been budgeting $50,000 every single year. We should be increasing that by at least inflation. Another way is to review our user fees for development or service installations to make sure that their costs are covered adequately. And for new assets and growth projects, that's might be a big change in how we have to start thinking of things. So like I said, this annual requirement only includes assets that we owned at the end of 2023. So for example, we have a new plaza. That gap doesn't include funding that new plaza from when we want to eventually replace it. So what we should do anytime we're looking at buying a new asset is we should determine what the annual requirement would be to save up to replace that asset when it needs to be replaced, and factor that into our decision of, do we want to buy or build that asset? I think it can be, you know, if you build a big arena and then you think, okay, the big cost is done, we paid for the new arena. But you have to almost immediately the next year start putting aside money to start replacing it. And then for new assets and growth assets, we need to start building into the budget just when we acquire new assets or assume new assets. So Silver Spring subdivision, we're going to take on all those new roads. Again, those aren't included in that annual requirements. We need to put more money into reserves to cover any new assets, and we can use growth tax dollars to fund that. And make sure our development charges background study is updated so that we ensure there's adequate funding for other projects. For water and sewer, the strategy is to use the 3.6% annual increase and 4.4% annual increase as recommended in the financial plans. And we'll continue to utilize frontage fees and allocate additional reserves from new accounts to reserves to fund new assets.
Very good, Ms. Juicy.
Yeah, you know yourself.
You're wound up.
I know.
Any further questions? Okay, council, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Very good, Christine. Okay, council, let's go to item 9.1. Motion by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Bojan, that bylaw 93 of 2024 solid drain being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the town of Plympton-Wyoming and the county of Lambton be taken as having been read third time, finally passed on this 27th day of November 2024, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Questions on that one? All those in favor? Carried. Item 10, any correspondence that has arrived since the agenda was printed, clerk?
Nothing for action.
Okay. Let's go to item 11.1. Correspondence and recommended reading, moved by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Councillor Wolvette. The correspondence items A to D. A to D related to recommended reading and routine approval and information items be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. On my left, anything to poll or recognize? Deputy Mayor?
No,
Councillor Van Claveren?
For me, sir, thank you.
Councillor Wolvette?
No, sir.
Right, Councillor Rodriguez?
Thank you. I just didn't really understand, are we on, I'll make sure we're on the right one. Correspondence, right? Yeah. So, the item B, amendments to the reference, it had something to do with brownfield development, and there was a commenting period on it. They're trying to reduce regulations or looking to reduce regulations in their effort to get more houses built. Didn't really understand if that would even affect our municipality.
I'm not sure, Clerk, do you have a chance to review that one?
No, I didn't. I'm not sure if Mr. Savansky or Mr. De Silva. Familiar, I thought I sent this one along and asked if it should be included.
It would have minimal effect in our municipality. I think known we have one brownfield site that would not necessarily accommodate residential development anyways. So I'm not aware of any areas that this would drastically affect.
Thank you. That was it.
Okay, Councillor Bojan? Okay, council, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, new business. Councillor Wolvette.
The item I would have tonight is where's our new street lights, when are they gonna be installed? Installed lots of telephone poles, lots of wires. But every day I get asked, where's those lights?
Mr. De Silva.
Through you, your worship, still hoping to get that done this year. Hydro One has completed their portion of the work. So now we are finalizing our detailed design now that we have the locations of all the new poles. As council's aware, we've already received a price from Blue Water Power. They've ordered the materials. So depending on the weather, as long as we don't get any snowstorms, we hopefully can get in there this year. If not, it will happen in the spring.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
So, yeah,
Yes, sir.
Councillor Van Claveren.
Nothing for me, sir.
Deputy.
nothing, sir.
Councillor Rodriguez. Councillor Bojan.
One quick question, since we're talking about lights for Mr. De Silva, do we have any update from the county on if they're still planning to do the Fleming and Egremont or Fleming and Lakeshore? Are they still planning to put those two lights up before end of the year?
Through your worship, I was circulating on some correspondence today, actually. They're finalizing detailed design there too. They did not give a specific date. They cited an issue with directional drilling, so with conduits, but they already put the conduits across the road. So we were discussing the potential of doing some direct bury, some excavated conduit, which I agreed to. It's actually gonna be 4 lights, not 2. They're going with 4, so I think they're also still pushing for this year, but it's definitely on the radar. I just received some emails about it today.
Nothing else? Okay, the only thing I have, I got 3 items. Number 1, our award-winning newspaper in the community, can be picked up in our lobby. When the new edition arrives. Oh, thank God. Thank goodness. Secondly, just remind everybody throughout the community that our OPP has kicked off the Ride campaign. against alcohol and drug impaired driving, so they are going to be blanketing our community. And thirdly, congratulations to one of our residents, Michael White, who won a gold medal in the under 23 75 kilogram, under 23 age group, 75 kilogram champion boxer. Michael is a resident of Plympton-Wyoming, and we congratulate him and thank him very much for his effort and for putting Plympton-Wyoming back on the map. I think it's a family tradition within that family, so it's good to hear. Okay, council, hearing nothing further under new business, I have a motion for number 13. I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. The council move into an in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 is amended for the following reasons. Item A, confidential third-party information, section 239, bracket 2, bracket 1. Information is supplied in confidence by a third party. Item B, employee matters, section 239, bracket 2, bracket D, labor relations or employee negotiations. All those in favor? It's carried. For those that are joining with us virtually, we thank you for being with us. We're going to now be going in camera. Council, I would ask, let's take a personal break. I ask you to be back in your seat for 6:30, and we will begin in camera at that time.